All right. Well, welcome to the Advisor's Edge. We've got Chuck, of course, happy to have you with us, and a guy who's got a super amount of depth in the RIA industry, was formerly with Schwab, done a lot of different things. Danny Schwartze. Did I say that right?
You did. You got it right. Thanks so much for having me.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Chuck, good morning. Are you thawing out on the East Coast out there?
We are thawing out for the next maybe 7 or 8 hours, and then it's back to sub-zero soon.
Oof.
Overnight, I believe.
Oof.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll be able to get outside and enjoy the sun before it freeze happens again.
Yeah, we're going to enjoy skating on the pond in about 12 hours, so it's all good.
Okay. Nice. All right. Very good. And Danny, where are you joining us from today?
Kansas City. So not too bad for us.
City.
We're actually hitting 50 degrees today, so not going to complain too bad.
All right.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, let's jump into it. Danny, you were at Schwab.
Yeah.
You've your Cyber Life is the company that you essentially broke away to build. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So really kind of the company's focus is cybersecurity education, but with an RIA focus. So really the main goal being to educate advisors, employees, and clients on all things cybersecurity through best practices, awareness, and really a lot of proactive education.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, I was going to just maybe just start us off a little bit with this. As someone that runs an RIA, it's interesting. Cybersecurity is sort of like compliance, right?
It is.
And do not take this the wrong way, but it's probably one of the least sexy parts of our business, right? I don't think I'm shattering any.
Yeah, you're not hurting my feelings. You're good.
Holy smoke, it's important. And what I would love to dive into is how do you make it easier for us RIAs, right?
Yep.
That don't really care to be involved with this because it's not. We like growth. We like marketing. We like to bring in new revenues. But we also like to keep our doors open, which I fully understand. Compliance and cybersecurity is a huge part of that. Is super relevant. But how do you make it palatable for people like me that think of that as an afterthought, an important one, but an afterthought nonetheless? How do you make it digestible?
Yeah, so I love that question. There's a lot to it, and one thing you actually hit on is really interesting. What we're seeing now is almost a convergence of compliance and cybersecurity, right? They're overlapping in such huge ways. And the classic challenge has always been, how do you get people involved, right? How do you get employees to pay attention, and how do you get advisors to pay attention? Because that ended up being one of the more challenging folks to work with to kind of get them up to speed on things. So really, some of the ways you have to approach it is making it a priority. So one of the things we talk about a lot of times is really creating a culture of cybersecurity within the business, right? So teaching employees the importance of it and why it's so critical, right? So if you think about what's happening with AI right now, so AI is revolutionizing everything. So anything we hear about, right, has an AI component, but that's really no different for cybercrime. So AI is pushing the envelope on things like cybercrime with really kind of things around, say, phishing, for example, and all of its different forms. It's getting incredibly sophisticated at this point and really getting hard to recognize because, you know, I always kind of joke, and one of the things we talked about previously was gone are the days of poorly worded phishing emails and text messages. Those things are going to be perfect coming in now, and they're going to reference potential projects that were posted online, or if anything, even employees like travel plans. So I say all that is you do have to make it a priority. And the thing I kind of think about is if you go back to kind of the fiduciary responsibility, right? So advisors are already consulting with clients on really complex topics. Cybersecurity really fits really naturally into that. And the way we kind of talk about that a little bit is really making that a priority for clients really shows the advisor is demonstrating, you know, that full fiduciary care. Like, we care about all your finances, but we also care about you personally. And I could make a pretty strong argument a client experiencing something like a cyber incident has a much more detrimental effect than ever, say, like a poor investment decision, right? It really rattles folks and scares them. So the thought process is, if we can bring clients into that overall strategy, it really lines up really with fiduciary responsibility.
Yeah, it's interesting, Danny. This is one of the things that really keyed me in, and I wanted to get you on the program, actually, it was because you have intentionally, with your cyber life, built it really around the client, not the advisor, but the advisor's client. And we'll kind of get into how that works in a minute, but I would love to hear from you. What clicked in your head to say, hey, with your cyber life, because you're right, the risk is really the people. It's easier to develop the systems, and we love people, but we're slow to change, right? Yeah. And so the systems are changing much faster than we are. But what was that in that instant where you're like, oh, hey, this could be something valuable and helpful?
Yeah, for me, there's really kind of two things. So from a personal perspective, we'll call it ballpark 2020, I had my identity stolen. So I reached out to my advisor at the time and asked, I was like, all right, I'm assuming you guys have some resources and things like that that can help me out. And it really turned out they didn't. So they had some kind of baseline stuff, but I really was kind of left trying to figure this thing out on my own. And honestly, it made me mad. So I was like, all right, I'm going to kind of devote some time to this. I really want to learn about personal cybersecurity so I can help maybe friends and family. Then fast forward a few years later, I had a family member actually lose their life savings to a tech support scam.
Wow.
And the reason, and once you start to delve into this, you'll find that when someone becomes the victim of a cybercrime, they have a tendency not to tell anyone. So one of the things I hear a lot from advisors is, well, my clients really haven't experienced anything. I was like, there's a very high possibility your clients are not telling you because they're embarrassed, right? Like you're getting tricked, you're getting manipulated into making a mistake. And my family members the same way. They knew I worked in technology. They knew I had an interest in this. They waited 2 weeks before they told me anything about it. And by that point, it's gone. There's nothing you can do. And really the final straw was my dad passed away probably 2 years ago now. And I come from a town of 300 people in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And my mom started getting basically targeted with a category of cybercrime that I didn't even know existed, which was bereavement cybercrime. So what they were doing was going through my dad's obituary, combing all of this really rich, detailed information and trying to run insurance scams on it. So all that just made me stop and think. I was like, I'm no different than anyone else. We're all going through this. There really has to be a little bit better way to approach this. Then really, kind of Chuck, with consulting with advisors, we constantly kept hearing, how do we protect our clients and really how do we protect our business from cybercrime? So that really kind of pushed me down the path. It was like, let's build something that really helps the clients and focuses on them. Then at the same time, let's get advisors up to speed on all things cyber.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's great. That adds a lot of richness to kind of why you're here.
Yeah.
And so when you are helping advisors figure out how to engage with their clients, because where do you start?
Yeah. So we took a really unique approach to getting clients involved. So the way we designed our platform and we put a lot of thought into it was just creating a simple kind of web portal that the advisors can brand, right? So brand it all back to the firm, and all the clients need is a simple PIN number to access it. And we did that for a very, very specific reason. If you're in crisis, most folks don't want to take the time to log into a site that has a login and password. We got to make it super easy. We got to give them the ability to know to go to my advisor's website, click on the security portal, and just simply enter a PIN. Once they jump in, they've got educational content on all things cybersecurity, cybercrime, best practices. So we've built some things around if you do become the victim of a cybercrime, here's some quick checklists, things to think about. And we use that actually as a little bit of an opportunity, right? So since we made it highly shareable, we really encourage clients to share it with friends and family members, right? So we're trying to get everyone involved. It goes back to that idea, we're all experiencing this, or we will at some point. So really giving them the tools to get it out to other people that the advisor might not have access to. And we use that actually as a little bit of opportunity. And Chuck, it goes right back to your first comments focused on growth. We use that as a little bit of a client referral mechanism. So the idea is the client shares the platform with somebody that's not a client of the advisor, but now they can see all these nice services that the advisor is providing. They could potentially create lead generation back as well.
Yeah, that's actually what I was just thinking as you were saying that. So is this more educational, or is this like cybersecurity? What I think of it is like, what walls are we putting up, the firewalls, this and that, or is it educational? Or is it both? I'm trying to get my head around exactly what you're saying, but it does sound interesting.
Yeah. So the thing we focus on is the education side, right? So we're trying to get folks up to speed, but then for specifically with the client side, we actually partner with identity protection platforms. So we personally use Aura. And so we encourage folks to use that because that ends up being almost the technology suite, right? So that's the software that's protecting devices and phones and things like that. Whereas we're focusing on, hey, let's try to get you educated so you don't become the victim of one of these. So that's the client side. Then really what we do on the employee side is very similar. So the employee side, we're really trying to teach advisors and employees about specific cybercrime that's going to affect their business, right? Because a lot of the platforms that are out there are a little bit generic when it comes to the RIA space. So we're trying to teach folks about bereavement scams and how those work, tax fraud and how those things work, and provide them with resources. Then we partner with other providers from an IT perspective, compliance perspective, and insurance perspective. We're trying to build that partnership network out there.
Interesting. And so if I may ask, to the degree you're comfortable, I guess, but I always like to get into some specificity. And one of the reasons why I love doing these podcasts, basically, I'm just doing like due diligence for Sovereign and
Fair enough.
content. So it's like double duty for me, truly.
Yeah.
So I really love that aspect of it. But kidding aside, could you speak to the economics? Like, how does it work? What is it?
Yeah.
How does it work for the advisor? Do we pay for it? Is it free? And there's like a revenue share with you and some of these other service providers, or what's the model look like?
Yeah, so we kept our pricing model really simple. So the way we've approached it, our kind of main platform is based upon firm. So we don't care about number of end clients. We put a little bit of guardrails around number of employees, typically being 15, but we've got some scale in there, mainly for the fact is we're working on some stuff. We actually want to add in things like phishing simulation testing, which is based upon number of users. That's still a little ways out, but yeah, we wanted to keep it super simple. So flat fee per firm per year. Our standard pricing is $3,000 a year per firm. Then we built out an option because we ran into situations for larger firms that obviously love to do kind of deep branding on their platform. So we built out an enterprise option. So basically what that allows for is all the education content is now branded to the firm itself. So all the videos, documents, all of those good things. And that's more just custom, just based upon level of customization. So yeah, I didn't want to overcomplicate it. Spending a decade in tech and seeing all the various pricing models. I'm sorry, what was that?
I said that's a great way to do it. So let's say hypothetically there's a firm with maybe $1 billion under management, maybe a couple thousand clients, asking for a friend that does care for having things hyper branded.
Yeah.
What and to be too specific, but what are we talking above that 3,000 that might look like?
Yeah. So usually what we're trying to approach it is an implementation fee. So basically we have to go through and brand all of the content and take some time to understand, what level of detail you want to do. Because a lot of times when you're doing that deep branding, folks want to add their own disclaimers to it. And we can actually get pretty creative with some of the things we do with the videos. And the other element is I laugh a little bit. It was like, we built a cybersecurity education platform, but really what we built was a white label video hosting platform. So we have these larger firms that want to add their own educational content in there as well. So typically from an implementation standpoint, we're looking at usually $5,000 for an implementation fee. Then hosting doesn't really change too much. It's usually $5,000 a year for a hosting fee after that.
I think that's pretty good. I mean, I'm always seeing this, like how could this be used for growth, to your point? Because we do a monthly webinar at our shop at Sovereign.
Yeah.
And it's not always investments. In fact, it's kind of rarely investments. It's usually planning or estate planning or tax planning or something like this. I don't think we've ever covered this, but this could be an interesting topic just as an educational webinar for firms like mine, for example. But then we're always looking for value adds, right? So if I can write one check for Sovereign and then all of our advisors get to offer something to their clients, I think that's neat. I've never thought of this before as a marketing opportunity, but it sounds like it could be.
Yeah, it is. It blends a little bit. Again, we're really focused on trying to help people, but that creates that unique opportunity of being able to use it as a little bit of a marketing tool as well. And you actually hit on something really interesting. So what we encourage, and it's actually part of what we do, is anyone that signs up, we do encourage a client event. So actually the idea behind that is invite all your clients to it, be a webinar, and we kind of do similar to stuff like this. We'll kind of talk about best practices, the things that folks are most likely to experience. And the thing that's always a big hit is we let clients ask questions, right? Because you'll be surprised how many clients have really experienced a cybercrime, and they want their specific problem addressed. They want to know what they can do. They want to know how they can help their folks. So we use that as the opportunity to address that and really kind of show them, even on the education platform, here's where you can find some additional information. Then the thing we ran into was the platform is really simple and easy to use, but Chuck, to your comments, advisors are kind of overwhelmed by it, right? Cyber is not a primary focus of day to day. So we try to take on that burden. It's like, hey, let's introduce the platform. Let's get your clients engaged with it, teach them how to use it, record this thing, and now you can use it as a marketing piece or actually a new client onboarding to get them up to speed.
Yeah, I think about what we had when I was an advisor. One of the fun things I did was do a presentation. Now this was like 13, 14 years ago, so it was a little outdated, but doing that presentation that was approved by the big parent company that I was working on, but doing that conversation, and it was that Q&A at the end where it really got fun and got me out of my depth a little bit. But I, one of the challenges is that it is always changing. And, and you mentioned, some things. How do you, I'm not trying to figure out your secret sauce, but I'm just curious, how do you stay on top of all this? It's hard for me. And I'm, when I sell cyber insurance, I'm constantly researching to keep on top of it.
So my ultimate goal, we actually do a couple things. So my just normal ADD and obsession about this stuff, I have ways to actually basically get feeds every day. And I probably read anywhere from 10 to 15 articles a day just on cybercrime to see if there's things we can add or if it's important. But I really wanted to build an ability for advisors to share feedback. So maybe a simple scenario is my client experienced this, shoot us some information about that. We'll see if we have some content on it. And if we don't, we can build content on it. So probably the easier way to say it, my goal is actually to crowdsource what's happening in the RIA space. Like, let's get feedback from advisors, because it moves at such an incredibly fast pace. It gets hard to stay up on top of everything. So if we can get folks to say, hey, here's what we're experiencing. And so I'll use a real example. So early on when we were kind of running through beta, we had a couple advisors say, hey, do you have anything on check fraud? Check fraud never even crossed my mind. I was like, is that even still a thing people are having? They're like, we experience it all the time. So I was like, okay, that's a good one. Let's get up to speed on that and build content about it. So that's at least the goal. Like, if we can get folks involved in talking about it and sharing information, we can use that as a resource to build.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I would think that sharing some of those horror stories is a great way to get people's attentions.
Yeah, that's good for business.
And something that reminds me of, so do you guys keep your toasters plugged in or not plugged in?
Unplugged, along with the microwave.
Unplugged? What about you, Chad?
Oh, so my dad was a fireman, so I'm horrible. I leave mine plugged in,
That's
which I
my
should
point.
not, right?
That's my point. So I tell you what, I would always keep it plugged in. My father-in-law was a fire chief.
Yeah.
And this is exactly my point. He has seen houses burn down because the toaster was plugged in.
Yep.
Now, what is that? One out of maybe 10,000 houses, whatever that is. But when you're a fire chief, you see that 1 out of 10,000 houses burn down because it's plugged in. But it's funny, Chad, that you said that. That's exactly the reason why we unplug ours, because he would come over and he'd be like, unplug everything. Like, Carmine, what are you doing here? He was like, have you ever seen a house burn down because of a toaster plugged in? I was like, no. He's like, I have.
Right.
But Danny, to your point, if you could share those stories, like, it does happen. It makes it very real, because luckily I've never had any issues with cybersecurity, and even over 30 years with clients, we've had a couple of minor things, but nothing really bad.
Yeah.
But I think it takes something really bad to wake someone up to be like, hey, I should protect myself on this. What's like the worst story that you could share?
Entire platforms being taken down. So the thing that's really interesting is, again, it goes back to AI and what it's doing to the space. Things like ransomware, which are not incredibly rare at this point, but they're not as common in the RIA space. I won't try to give too many details about the firm, but what happened was a cyber criminal had actually got into an employee's email address. And the thing that a lot of people think about when a cyber criminal accesses an email account, they lock it out. That's the old mentality. The new mentality is to live and breathe in that email address and siphon off as much information as you can. So what the criminal did was send a very, very authentic email that looked like it came from the boss to the employee that said, hey, I need you to do really quick, download this software and install it. And we'll talk about it here at the lunch meeting coming up, because I had a meeting coming up in 15 minutes. So seemed very authentic. Downloaded it, it was ransomware, and just spread throughout the system, locked everything out. And now you're stuck in a situation, because they had a pretty decent IT department, but ransomware in its nature has got to such a level of complexity, it can circumvent some of that stuff. So you're talking full system lockouts. Now, the next part two of that was they started downloading as much data as they can. So all client records, names, email addresses, socials. So now you have a ransomware situation where your system's locked out. You're going to have to pay these guys to be able to get your systems out. And one of the stats that they never shared how much they paid, but the most recent stats show that average ransomware incident's about $10 million right now. And there's a whole thing. I could spend an hour talking about the business of cybercrime. So since it is so lucrative, what happens is you'll consult with either someone that can, FBI or someone like that, to help from the ransomware side. And these criminals, the way they do this is they have basically ethics standards. So what that means is if you pay them, they will send you a certificate of deletion that they've deleted all of your information, because their goal is to trick someone else. And if they are in a situation where they're not deleting data and they're getting paid, it basically is like, well, don't ever pay these guys. They're not going to delete the data. So it goes to the full business component, right? It is incredibly lucrative just to trick someone to download something.
Right. Well, I guess it's good that they have some level of business ethics, I suppose.
Yeah, it is definitely a business.
Wow. No, and I got an interesting thing, and I got to be careful, but I think it's helpful to be aware of. There's one of the custodial firms out there is actually monitoring the dark web for account numbers.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it came up for one of our clients where that information leaked out, showed up on the dark web, and it actually locked up the RIA couldn't access. It took time to get it cleared because they had to prove.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of a good news, bad news sort of thing, because I mean, ultimately I think it's a good news because not knowing is not necessarily the best answer. But it was informative to me that, look, everybody is working their hardest to try and protect what our clients are doing and what we need to do to operate. But I thought that was kind of a cool thing that this particular firm is doing to protect their clients, which in turn are working to protect, the strength of the net is really what we want to do, which is what is exciting about the work that you're doing, Danny.
Yeah. And I always find it really interesting because I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with dark web monitoring because of the nature of the dark web, right? So the dark web, and this is actually what we try to train advisors and clients both on, is the dark web in its simplest form is basically just a series of encrypted computers that don't know any details about anything in connection. So when you say you're monitoring the dark web, you're probably just monitoring one computer out of millions. And that one might be getting a lot of information. So I always kind of laugh because you'll see places are like, oh, we're doing deep dark web monitoring. I was like, really, by its nature, you can't do that. It's not designed that way, because if it was, you'd be able to go after all these criminals and all these people running, illegal activities. So it's one of those things. I think it is important, especially if they're able to flag and say, hey, your account number or your social security number are out there, and you can take some measures in place.
You know what? We sometimes go a little bit off topic, but this is still pretty much within the topic. But can we talk a few minutes about the dark web? Yeah. And you kind of started a little bit. So the dark web, I have been curious, what exactly is it? So are these all sort of discrete one-off computer systems? And how do you get there? Is it still just a website? Is there one for like, this bad thing, that bad thing? Is there like a central directory of bad things? Like what is it exactly?
Yeah. So it gets very complex very quickly. So I always kind of tell folks, you can't really just get on Google and say, all right, I want to jump on the dark web real quick. It doesn't work that way. So there's specific types of, I would say, browsing systems that you'd have to access to be able to get to them. And most of the time, someone already on the dark web has to give you access to it. So it's not super easy to get on there. But yeah, you kind of hit on it. Really what it is, it's a series of computers and servers spread across the entire world. And I always kind of try to explain it. It's actually a little difficult. So say if you've got 3 computers in a row and data transfers from computer 1 to computer 2, they share that information. When it transfers from computer 2 to 3, computer 3 knows nothing about computer 1. So it's all of these just different blocks. So, and that information just spreads everywhere. And as far as going out, I don't think it's, I've never actually been on it personally. Everything I know is just deep reading. But it's not necessarily as easy to go out and just say, I'm looking for XYZ, like we do on Google, right? So you have to start to get connected and actually start to understand how to weave through all of those systems to get to the information you want. And again, it goes back to that idea. It's incredibly complex and almost impossible to monitor.
Is it almost predicated on an actual human telling another human, here's how you get onto my dark web, and we specialize in fake IDs, or we specialize in, really other bad things, and so on and so forth? Like how do those connections happen if there's no central directory? Yeah.
So there's different ways. There's kind of the classic chat networks that are still out there. So the way you actually think about it, there's, I don't know if you're a fan of Stranger Things or not. So there's kind of,
I couldn't do it.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I'm at that point where I am too old, but this is just ridiculous. I don't know.
So you have the surface web, which is everything we know, right? And everything we use. Then you have the dark web, and it's basically just a mirror of it. So there's chat rooms, there's networks to get a hold of folks. You can really put out requests, and that can kind of scatter out. So there's different mechanisms they can use to get you connected with what you want to view. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily as super easy, but the dark web's been around for quite a while. So those networks have got much more, I would say, easy to access to some degree. Whereas if you rolled it back maybe 10 years ago or so, it was still in its infancy at that point, not as user-friendly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's related. And one of the things that's interesting about it is insurance carriers, the good cyber insurance carriers, are also monitoring it as best they can.
Yeah.
Now, the reality is when they're monitoring, they're usually looking at it, in my opinion, now depends on how often I've done a deep dive with them, but it's more surface level on their website. And most of the advisory firms, their websites is almost like just a public page, calling card, if you will. Here's how you get a hold of me. Here's the basics. And so it's not as deep, to your point, Danny, it's almost like surface level. Oh, okay. If you show up that they've attacked your website or something like that. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a challenge, but we're learning.
and that's the nature of it. Right. So, Chuck, it goes back to your opening comments. Cybersecurity has got so complex, right? There's so many elements to it. And I really think about it too from, the advisor's perspective. If you think about all of these technology systems that RIAs use, so reporting, CRM, client portals, email, all of this stuff has really rich information into it. And then you take that encompassed with just day-to-day activities, right? Servicing clients takes a tremendous amount of work. Then also focusing on new businesses. We talk about it a lot of times that advisors know cyber's important, but it doesn't end up being a top priority until something happens. Then it becomes a massive priority. And we found a lot of folks really, if they have an incident, they're scrambling a lot of times. So they don't have things like an incident response plan, or really who's going to actually help with this. Like there's no one designated within the firm that's going to take the lead on making sure things get corrected. So that's the things we're trying to teach folks about, is like, here, just take time. This is important. It can be mission critical for the business, because a really good cyber incident, like we talked about earlier, can completely shut down the business and for long periods of time.
Got it. So, one other question I do have with this. So I get the educational part, hugely important. Can you speak a little bit more to, like, and you kind of mentioned this, we have a client that has been hacked.
Mm-hmm.
What does your site, your services do after a bad incident?
Yeah. So what we're trying to do, a couple things. So we're trying to provide resources, or the thing that I wanted the most was just a checklist. Like, here's the 15 things I need to do. So we've built out of all of that. But the reason we actually partnered with a company like Aura is, in addition to all of the things they're doing from kind of keeping devices protected, they offer individual cyber insurance policies. So up to about $1 million of coverage for an individual, or I think it's $2 million for a family. So we rely on that heavily. So it's like, all right, if you do experience a financial loss, here's an insurance policy you can tap to hopefully make yourself whole again. Because the thing about a lot of cybercrime, especially when it happens to a client, again, it's happening fast. We always kind of take from the education side, fear and urgency drive cybercrime. So if we can get folks to think about it, they can prevent that. But if it's already too late, so they've transferred money, they've given a cyber criminal access to an account, you got to move incredibly fast. And so the really interesting part to all that, and it's kind of lost on a lot of folks, is cyber crimes have a tendency to happen at unique times. So what I mean by that is normally after hours. So they know people they can't get to a trusted resource, or your bank's closed, your credit card company might have a fraud line you can get a hold of, but then it's happening on weekends and holidays. So it's like, they know, for specific example, if we can trick someone, they've got a period of time where they don't have resources. So that's, again, where we're trying to come in. It's like, hey, here's at least a starting point. And again, with systems like Aura, they've got someone they can call. It's like, hey, I'm experiencing this right now. What do you guys recommend? So it ends up being almost the individual client service level of it.
Yeah, it's I think about the worst experiences that our clients have had, and one of the worst one was late on a Friday afternoon. You know, and so yeah, the timing of it, they're incredibly clever.
Yeah, well, it's interesting for RIAs too. They'll focus. So if they want to go after your business, they'll time it Christmas, holiday, New Year's. You'll see a lot of cyber incidences happening because people aren't, again, they're out celebrating, they're with family and things like that. And so they use that as a very unique opportunity to get into the systems because they know people are distracted. Makes
some sense. You know, one question I was going to bring up last time, Chad, but I'll bring it up now because Danny kind of referenced it. You know, where exactly is the line of demarcation between insurance and insurance?
Oh, okay. Okay. Now we got to define them. Insurance.
It had me meaning to ask that because I thought it was like maybe a north-south thing, but we have Kansas City. We also have the Pacific Northwest. Like, I pronounce it insurance.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Both of you guys are very clearly insurance. Like, I can't even quite replicate it. But where in the regionally, where does that come from? Because I thought it was a north-south, but clearly it's not based on this small sample size.
Well, that's a great question. And here's what a little secret you might be interested to know about me. I have a bunch of family that came from West Texas. And so every once in a while, I was in a grocery store one time, and I must have said something, and this woman comes up to me and says, "Are you from this little tiny town out in West Texas?" And I said, "Well, no, but my grandpa is." And she says, "Well, I can hear it in your accent." And I said, "Well, that's wild, right?"
Yeah.
Yeah, great question. I don't know.
I always attribute that back to, do you say pop or do you say soda? Because it's, so I say soda. Everyone else kind of, like, once you get into Kansas and I would say like Colorado, it's pop at that point.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. And out here it's mostly soda, but growing up there was some pops. We're weird on the West Coast. You get just about everything.
All right. Well, that solves that mystery.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, I think this has been a fantastic discussion. Danny, thank you for taking some time to come out and chat with us.
You bet.
I'm really, one of the things that's, we're getting close to landing the plane, but I just want to kind of put a fine point on it, on the niche, that the thing that I see really unique of what you're doing. And I just want to hear from you if this is intended or maybe I'm off base. Okay. But the niche that you're doing with your cyber life is really driving it down to that individual, the client of the RIA, educating there and understanding that when those individuals have a good understanding, it's going to kind of filter through the entire organization. Is that right?
Yeah, it's spot on. The goal is to, we talk about it a lot, just bring everybody into the cybersecurity strategy, right? So advisors, employees, and clients, again, it goes back to the idea, we're all into this together. Let's all try to take united fronts against it. And a lot of times is, if you kind of think about your clients, and your clients are your lifeblood of your business, right? But if they're not practicing those good cybersecurity habits, that risk can get transferred very quickly to the RIA. So really, by taking that united front against it, our thought is it's a better, much more proactive approach, and really should make the clients, I would say, trust and loyalty that much better, as well as helping protect the business.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to sum it up, Danny. And that's a really good point, right? So one of the first lines of defense for my firm is to make sure my clients don't get hacked, because if they get hacked, they're hacking into my firm.
Yep,
so
exactly right.
If we can teach, our clients not to click on that phishing link, that will ultimately mean someone's getting into our custodial accounts. It's definitely a group effort. So that's an excellent point. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, we try to, the thing I always tell clients, I always finish up the client presentations was, if you take anything away from our conversation, just pause. If something seems weird, pause, ask someone. Don't be afraid to ask someone about that, because just that moment can make all of the difference. Because once you click on that link and it takes you someplace, I would say the close rate, maybe they put it in sales terms for cyber criminals, is incredibly high. Once you get past that first click, it usually goes down a rabbit hole very fast.
Yeah. Well, that's good things to remember. And for one thing we like to close with is, what do you want to be remembered as? And I hear a lot of passion around security because you've been affected so greatly. But what is that for you, Danny?
Yeah, of all the questions, that one was actually, I had to put a lot of thought into, and it's really, my hope is that we're just able to make a difference in someone's life where they don't experience that fear and uncertainty and financial loss, right? Because it's, once you're in the elements of it and you think you're the victim of something, you go into panic mode. So if we can just help prevent that and give folks at least a little bit of a sense of security, that would be our ultimate goal.
Yeah. And that really goes hand in glove with what us financial advisors like to do. So that's a perfect fit.
Absolutely. So we will have the contact information for you, Danny, and for your cyber life when the advisors want to dig deeper. What is the best way to reach out to you? Actually, best channel, if you will.
Yeah, probably email's the easiest channel at this point, or we've got some abilities if they just want to actually schedule some time. We've got some direct links on our website where folks can just grab some time on my calendar. Great.
Well, thank you so much. Chuck, did you have anything else you want to wrap with?
No, that was it. This was really, really good. As sexy as cybersecurity can be, but it really can be. When you couple it with growth, it becomes very sexy. And I say the same thing about compliance.
Yeah.
So thanks for that information.
You bet.
Yeah. Very cool. Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time, and hopefully this has inspired some advisors and brought some confidence. So thank you.
Appreciate it.